Okay, Drew. So we know there are five tight ends that people are really counting on in fantasy. There's Kyle Pitts, there's Mark Andrews, there's Darren Waller, there's George Kittle, and of course the top dog, Travis Kelce. Last year, it was a three-person race between George Kittle, Darren Waller, and Kelce. The latter two, or the former two, or however I spun that, Waller and Kittle, have fallen from grace a little bit in people's minds. Pitts is rising up draft boards dramatically as people are intrigued at the prospect that is him. He's such a unique player. And Mark Andrews had just a better season last year, was a more reliable player than both Waller or Kittle. So now it's popular for these guys to end up paired together in a lot of draft boards. They're going in very similar ADP. When it comes to Waller versus Kittle, the debate for me has come down to injuries, particularly last year. And this one sucks for me because I actually, obviously, hey, you see it right here. I love my boy. I love me some George Kittle. But when it comes to fantasy discussions, and especially when I'm putting such a high investment in that tight end position, I want to know my guys on the field. And he, for what it's worth, he played more games than Darren Waller did last year. But George Kittle, the type of football he plays will always lead to injuries in my mind. He takes pride in being such a great run blocker, such a great pass blocker. Sometimes that just leaves him open to miss more games. Darren Waller is more of a bigger wide receiver in the Raiders offense. And while he does have questions with the inclusion of Davante Adams into the offense, I think that his questions are minimal compared to George Kittle's. But what say you?
I think you make a good point there. I personally lean towards Kittle a little bit. But the other thing that scares me in George Kittle is just simply Trey Lance. What he do if he's going to be starting all year. I don't know how well he's going to get the ball to Kittle. Whether they're going to use him more for blocking or what they're going to do. So as far as Darren Waller goes, he's a good player. He caught 55 passes last year in 11 games. He's solid. He's always been good, but he only got 2 touchdowns last year. I think that hurt him a lot. He finished as the tight end 18 last season. I don't know. I lean Kittle just a little bit. I think they're both slotted about right at tight end 4 and tight end 5. I don't know. What do you think?
I think that Trey Lance is the giant pink elephant in the room in this discussion because we know that Derek Carr and Darren Waller have a rapport. We know that Derek Carr looks for Waller on the field. And even with Davante out there, I think he's still going to look for Darren Waller on the field. From what I've seen so far in Trey Lance's style of play, it seems to be more wide receiver favorable than it does for the tight end position. Through Trey Lance's 2 starts last year, the tight ends really didn't get a lot of touches, didn't really see a lot of action. And that's something that, again, if I'm drafting a tight end this high and I'm sacrificing depth at running back and wide receiver, I don't want just average run-of-the-mill tight end play. I want a guy that's going to be a bit of a game breaker, which George Kittle in terms of ability is, but in terms of opportunity, I don't know if he's going to have the same level of opportunity that Waller is just to be a wide receiver. I think that George Kittle is a far better football player, but that doesn't count for fantasy. There's no fantasy football points for a pancake block, unfortunately. Maybe we got to change the rules to allow it, but sadly, in most leagues, that's just not going to be the case. And I think that's going to impact George Kittle. And throughout his career, too, George hasn't been much of a red zone threat in the Niners offense. Last year was a career high in touchdowns with 6. So you wonder if he's going to regress back to his career averages, whereas Darren Waller, I think, is still more valuable red zone entity than Kittle is. And I think that that's all things that play into this tight end debate more than anything, particularly amongst the elite guys. Who's going to fall into the end zone more? Who's going to get more receiving opportunity? You kind of want more volume plays because every other tight end position in the league is usually like anywhere from 3 to 5 targets. You kind of are looking at these guys more because they're in the 7 to 8 target range and they can do a little bit more with it when they have the ball in their hands. It sucks for me to say, but I think that Darren Waller, is a better fantasy player than George Kittle is today.
I would lean Kittle myself just a little bit, but I'm going to say that neither of these guys are likely to end up on any of my fantasy teams just based on their ADP. I don't think either one of them is worth that compared to some of the other wide receivers you could draft around that point.
Do you think, though, that the narrative is correct with Pitts and Andrews being so far ahead of them?
I think so. Yeah. I think those three guys are, especially Mark Andrews and Travis Kelsey, are definitely worthy of being picked pretty early and way ahead of them.
I can agree with that, although we disagree on this particular debate and going a bit contrarian, again, given my loyalties, but it just is what it is. I don't mince words when it comes to my money, and particularly our listeners' money, because I'm hoping that to give you the best advice in my mind to help you win your league. So no loyalties when it comes to winning a championship here. Anyway, guys, if you enjoy the conversation, we have more conversations littered across our channel. We're talking a lot of college football this week. We have game previews. We have fantasy videos like the one you're watching right now. And speaking of fantasy content, we want fantasy questions in that comment section. So go ahead and leave those below. Leave a like on the video. Hit that subscribe button. Got Ju-Ju Talk Sports here. Got Andrew Hohman over there. Stay safe, happy, and healthy. And we will see you on the next one.